I think we're in chapter 10, boys and girls, of John. Let's open it up and take a look. Okay. Now, chapter 10 and half of chapter 11 is going to be, in John's perspective. All right, go ahead. I'll wait.
It's recording. Go ahead.
Okay. In John's perspective is going to be pretty much the end of Jesus' public ministry. Then we're going to switch. Right now it's been very intent, but it's also been very corporate, very public. The priests are fussing and the people are fussing and everybody's fussing and there's great confusion. You've seen all that, how Christ has been using it. And then last week we saw the blind guy that was healed, but it wasn't so much a man that couldn't see was healed, it was so much that nobody could see. And Jesus was trying to heal them. So this is his last shot at kind of a public thing, at least, because in the eyes of John, he thinks the intimacy of the Last Supper was the real ministry of Christ. And he says that because for two reasons. First of all, the Last Supper, although there is some emphasis on this world and the behavior, W-O-R-L-D, right? Anyway, and the behavior therein, most of the Last Supper is going to concern John and Jesus about the next world. And once again, I got to ask, where did John get all this information? He's going to get down, face to face with Jesus Christ at the Last Supper in the middle of Passover, the holiest ritual the Jews had. And once that service starts, it is the sin against God to interrupt that service. And Jesus is going to interrupt that service about 4 times. And every time we're going to focus on something that's never been focused on before. And John is going to write about it as though he knows it. Question, how does he know that? Well, I'm thinking he's seen it before. So again, I'm going to put forth my proposition that John wrote his gospel after his little jaunt to heaven. There's just nothing in this book that makes sense unless you put that trip to heaven first. Then everything makes sense. Now, I know a lot of theologians will say, oh no, John wrote the gospel last. Matthew wrote his, Mark wrote the first one. Matthew and Luke wrote about the same time together, and they had reference to Mark. John wrote many years later, way down here, and although Mark and Luke and Matthew all have 50, 60, 70% of each other's material in their gospel, John has maybe 3% of all of that. 97% of John's gospel is unique to John. How is that possible? Well, because he had an extra reference that nobody else had. Now, a lot of people say, Chanter, you're nuts. You've been studying this stuff too long. Maybe I am. I don't know. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm going to say that John's little trip to heaven happened first. And my only evidence to make such a claim is he's writing stuff that he should have never known about. Now that all starts about halfway through chapter 11, and when we get there, we're going to emphasize that I'm going to show you the intimacy there. It's more than just, let's have a Passover meal and go play or something. But right now he's got to close some doors and finish up on his public ministry, and that's chapter 10. He's going to do it in some really creative ways. Okay, let's look at chapter 10. Truly, truly, there's the double entendre. He's grabbing your coat, he's shaking your lapels, he's saying, listen to me. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter by the door into the fold of the sheep, but climbs up some other way, he is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. Now, let's stop there for a second. When John went to the other world, what was the first thing he saw? Remember? You ever read the Revelation? With all the creepy stuff.
Obviously we don't.
He was taken by the Spirit, and he saw the New Jerusalem from a distance coming down out of heaven from the hand of God. And he says it was gorgeous. It was as beautiful, he says, as a bride is on the day of her wedding, because she's all adorned and looks fabulous. And he likens the city unto that imagery. And then he says, and I saw a door standing open. Remember that? A door to heaven standing open. And the Spirit was leading him into the door. And once he came in the door, he saw there the great throne. Or I can't draw a throne, but it was there. And God was on the throne. And there was a rainbow around the throne of all the fabulous jewels and colors. And what we see here as he looks through the mighty door, I can't draw doors either, but this is a door that was open. He saw the promise of God. He saw the love of God illuminating the city. He saw the promise of God of hope and salvation, which was the rainbow after the destruction of the world. And he said, I'm not going to destroy you anymore. And we're going to do that. And he saw the Lord there. So the door's open. God is home. He's at the throne. He's got the promise of hope around him. That's not bad news, folks. That's good news. For now the door is open. And the Lord is here. And he's still emphasizing the hope and the salvation of people, not the damnation of people. I did not come to destroy the world, said Jesus. I've come that it might be saved through him. Now, we're sitting here. He's trying to close the door on this world, and he's saying, you know what? And he starts likening things unto a shepherd and a sheep. The one who climbs over the wall or tries to get in by another way will never be allowed to get in there because he's a thief or a robber. And quite frankly, he doesn't belong there. He has no ownership there. But the one who comes through the door, he's the shepherd, and he will guide his sheep, and he calls the sheep by name. He knows who you are. Now, what did Jesus say in all the other Gospels? When they came and knocked at the door, Lord, let us in. What did he say? Depart from me. I never knew you. Now, how can the Lord God, all-knowing, all-omniscient, say, I don't know you?
It's a different kind of I know.
It's a different kind of I know. We have nothing to do with each other. And not that I wanted it that way, but you wanted it that way. So you see how John's tying all these things that he heard Jesus preach together with somewhat of another knowledge. Some kind of other knowledge that he knows what's going on. That the Bible, it says the first thing he sees he sees the city at a distance, but when he gets close, he sees this door open. And the first thing he sees in the door open is the Lord himself. And that Lord is surrounded by the promise of hope. Not hope for God, hope for mankind. Includes you ladies as well. That, I'll put my bow in the sky as my promise to you not to destroy this earth again like this. And that's a wonderful thing. Open door, God's home. He's beckoning us in. He's calling us by name. And Jesus said, on that day, I will come and take you there myself. So you won't even have to just walk in and say, hi, God, what's going on? Jesus will bring you in, stand you before him and say, Father, this is Benny. She's a little cratchety, but overall, she loves you a lot. That's why Jesus said, if you deny me before men, I will deny you before the Father and all the angels of heaven. Why would he say that? You're going to see that later, by the way. Because he's been there. And he's seen it. That's why he can say it. None of the other guys said that. All right, well, let's go on. Chapter 10. I just want you to see that shepherd imagery. And that's an imagery, a metaphor that anybody in that day and age would know, because everybody was a shepherd, you know. Shepherd or a fisherman, basically. That's how they made their living. Okay, and he leads them out. Verse 4. When he puts forth all his own, he goes before them. This is Jesus. I will take you there myself. And the sheep follow him because they know his voice. And the stranger they simply will not follow, but will flee from him because they do not know the voice of a stranger. This figure of speech Jesus spoke to them, but they did not understand what those things were, which he had been saying to them. Of course not. They hadn't been to heaven yet. John has. Made perfect sense to him. Jesus therefore said to them again, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. And all who came before me are nothing but thieves and robbers. And the sheep did not hear them, but I am the door. If anyone enters with me, he shall be saved, and he shall go in, and he shall go out and find good pasture. The thief comes only to steal and to kill and to destroy. I came that each one may have life and have it abundantly. For I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd would even lay down his life for the sheep. He who is a hireling and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep, beholds, when he sees the wolf coming, he leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them and destroys them. He flees because he is a hireling. He is not concerned about the sheep. Talking about the priests and leaders now. These guys are not in it because they know God. They're in it for any other reason. So he's talking about the corruption even of the leaders of the Jews. But I am the good shepherd. And I know my own, and my own will know me, even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I will lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep which are not yet of this fold, and I must bring them in also. Remember when John went to heaven, and he saw the myriad of people all in white robes gathered around, praising God at the throne, and the angel asked him, John, who are these people? And he cleverly answered, Lord, only you know. He didn't. And he says, these are all the people who have come out of the tribulation of the world and who have washed their robes white in the blood of the Lamb. And now they are praising the Lord, their Father, forever and ever. Remember that? All right, there are other people not of this fold. Remember, Christ is trying to work with the Jews. And what would the Jews not do?
Listen to him, believe him.
Well, believe him, but they would certainly never include anybody that was not a Jew. That's what the point is he's trying to make. How would John know that? Again, he saw it. Who are these people, John? I'm not really sure who they are or why they're here. You know, though. He says, these are the people that have come out of the tribulation. Tribulation is the world. The nonsense, the mess, the hatred of the world. But they've done something no one else has. And that is they've washed their robes white by the blood of the Lamb. The Lamb that would just said he would lay down his life for the people. And they have come to the next world. And they are welcome there. How would John know that? Being a good Jew, he would have adhered to the rules of the Jew. And what were the rules of the Jew concerning coming into the presence of God? You're not allowed. You're simply not allowed. Never have been. This is our God, our ball. Nobody can play with it except us. So, nothing in this Bible, nothing in this gospel, makes sense unless you understand where John's been. Now, when they read this gospel, the priests would have hit the ceiling. They would have said, what is he talking about? We're not letting the Gentiles in here. We're not, Gentiles, general word for not Jew. Okay, we're not letting these guys in here. They hear my voice, and they shall become one flock with one shepherd. Verse 16, I have other sheep that are not yet in this fold. For this reason the Father loves me, because I will lay down my life, but then I may take it up again. For no one has taken it away from me, for I lay it down on my own initiative. And I have the authority to lay it down, and I have the authority to take it back up again. And this commandment I have received from my Father, from God himself. And there arose a great division amongst many of the Jews because of these words. You think? Everything he just said was not Jew. And many of them were saying, this man has a demon. He's insane. Why do you listen to him? Well, because John's gospel doesn't make sense to anybody unless you realize where he's been. Others were saying, these are not the sayings of one demon-possessed. A demon cannot open the eyes of the blind, can he? That was the last chapter. At that time, there was the Feast of Dedication that took place in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. And the Jews therefore gathered around him, and they were saying to them, how long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly. Jesus answered, I have told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, and these bear witness of me. But you do not believe because you are not of my sheep. Here we go back to the sheep thing. For my sheep hears my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish, and no one shall snatch them from my hand. For my Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them from the Father's hand. For I and the Father are one. And the Jews took up stones to throw it, to stone him. And Jesus answered them, I have showed you so many good works from the hand of the Father. For which one of these good works are you going to stone me? And Jesus answered him, for a good work we do not stone you, but for blasphemy, because you, being only a man, make yourself out to be God. Jesus answered them, has not it been written in your own law? I said, you are gods. And if he called them gods to whom the word of God came, and the scripture cannot be broken, do you say of him whom the Father sanctified and sent into the world that you are blaspheming? Because I said, I am the Son of God? If you do not do the works of my Father and do not believe me, but if I do them, though you do not believe me, believe the works themselves, that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I am in the Father. Therefore they were seeking again to seize Jesus, and he eluded their grasps. And he went away again beyond the Jordan to the place where John was first baptizing. And he was staying there. And many came to him, and they were saying, while John performed no sign, yet everything John said about this man has come true. And many believed in Jesus there. John didn't work any miracles. He just baptized them for the forgiveness of sins. But he said, there comes one who will work many miracles, and you will see that he is from God. And of course, the people didn't really understand until Jesus shows up and starts doing things that have never been seen before. And not just simple parlor tricks, the sleight of hand. He's walking on water, for crying out loud. How many people you know can do that? I don't know any. He's feeding 5,000 with 2 fish. How many can do that? Well, other than McDonald's, how many can do that? About 2 fish and 5,000 other McFishes. He's healing blind guys. He's healing guys laying by the side of pools that have been dying for 38 years. He's healing women with issues. He's healing, just everybody. Sometimes he touches them. Sometimes he just speaks a word to the Roman centurion. Go your way, your son's fine. He says, you need to come and touch him. No, I don't. He's fine. And the guy started going home, remember? And the servant came out. And he said, your son is fine all of a sudden. What hour did he get fine? And they said the hour. And it was the same hour when Jesus said, go home, your son's fine. And then he knew, this is the Son of God. Roman centurion, not a Jew. So what he's trying to do now is give the last admonition to the world, saying, you guys still don't believe me, and I've given you a number of witnesses. And the biggest witness is your own word, your own law. The second biggest witness are all the acts, the good stuff I did, and yet you still want to stone me. How is that possible? For which good work are you stoning me for? Let's use a little common sense here, fellas. What did I do that has so aggravated you? Oh, well, for all your good works and that stuff and all your good preaching. We're not stoning you for that. We're stoning you because you think you are God. You used the wrong words when you said, I am. Before Abraham was, I am. But you're not even 34 years old. How can you say you know Abraham? He lived centuries before. Jesus said, before Abraham ever was, I am. Why would he say that? More importantly, here's that dang interpretive question. Why would John write that? Well, I erased it. John saw something nobody else saw. He saw the Lamb of God, who is Jesus. He saw the Lamb slain. He saw the myriads of people who washed their robes in the blood of that Lamb and now stand before the Father, praising Him, welcoming Him forever and ever. He went through that door. He saw God. He saw the promise of hope. He saw the consequence of believing in the Lord into life eternal. He saw the promise come true, although it had not come true for him yet. Because the Lord would tell him, write this stuff down one more time and take it to the people. One more time. God is all, He is without beginning and without end. I don't know how to draw that other than maybe a circle. And we are time bound. We have a beginning, we have a middle, and we have an end. But the Lord, in essence, just always is and always was. And if He's all-knowing and sees us, like I've explained so many times, all at the same time He sees. He sees me when I'm a little baby crying. He sees me when I'm a young adult getting in trouble. He sees me as a 30, 40-year-old. He sees me as a middle-ager. He sees me as a, getting old but not quite. And then He sees me as a decrepit old guy over here. And He sees all of these things and all of my acts and everything I've done all at the same time. When God says, or John says, and we came before the Lord and we stood and we were there individually by ourselves and we were naked. This is what He's talking about. Not that you weren't wearing clothes. I don't know if that's important in heaven or not. But that nothing that we've ever done.
But I'm here.
Okay, come in. You're not dead yet. That's a good thing.
Not busy.
Roxy said you went to the hospital for some medicine interaction or something.
Yes, I did.
Did you? She just told me that yesterday at the Vacation Bible School. I didn't know. You should have called me.
She was busy. She couldn't call.
Well, you should have called me anyway. I'd have come over and give you more drugs. I got drugs. Anyway, this is what God is talking about, or what John's talking about. Why, I don't know, other than he's probably seen it. And this is what Jesus says when he goes, nothing you've ever said, done, or even thought, for that matter, will go unnoticed by the Lord. He knows everything. Therefore, it is very important when you take communion that you eat that bread, who is Jesus Christ, slain for you, the shepherd that laid down his life, so that some of this stuff can be forgotten. And it's very important you drink that cup, which seals the Father's promise to send Jesus to take you there. Where he is, you may also be forever and ever. And that gets rid of the rest of this stuff. And your sins and your iniquities I will remember no longer. I don't know how to say that any plainer than the Bible has said that. Father of the Old Testament, when he made the promise, said it. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, in the Gospels has said it. I will lay down my life. I will take the brunt that you may live and be glorified. The only thing is, I need to know who you are. I need to know you, and you need to know me. And that is the relationship that will save your life for eternity. The shepherd knows his sheep, and he calls them by name. They hear his voice, and they follow him. They respond to him. Not to the world. They respond to him. And they follow him. The thief, the robber, anybody in it for any other reason, they won't listen to him. Not if they know me. And I've many other sheep that I've got to get into the fold that hasn't happened yet. So he's opening this door once more for everybody in the world. Now the Jews aren't going to like that. And the Jews are going to pick up rocks. And he says, why are you stoning me? For the good acts or the good word I'm preaching? Well, we're stoning you because you think you're God, and you think you can include everybody in our God. He's our God. He's not yours. We are the dispensers of faith, we priests. We are the holy spigots, if you will, that turn on the grace and turn off the grace at our initiative. Not yours. This is why they hate him. They've made a lot of money off it. They've gotten rich. They've gotten powerful. They've got everything a man could want in that day and age. And they don't have to share it with anybody, not even their own parents. But they got a good deal going. Why would they want Jesus to come and say, this is not a good idea, fellas? Now, this is a heck of a way to sum up your last opportunity for ministry in the presence of the people and in the presence of the priests. What's Jesus doing here? Better said, what's John doing here? Why would John put this in there? See, that's a question you need to answer. When you study the Bible, ask the interpretive question, why? It's like Albert Einstein said. They said, if you could confront God and ask him one question, what would it be? Would it be how the world's created? You know what his answer was? He said, no, I wouldn't ask him how the world was created. I'd ask him why he created the world. The rest is just mathematics. I can figure that out. I want to know why he created the world. Why did he create man? Why did he create Barbara? And why did he create Katie? Of all craziness, why did he create Cucaracha? Why are you here? Don't you give me that eyeball. Answer the question. Why are you here? Why am I here? Of all the pastors in this entire planet, this country alone, and there's billions of them, why me? Let's face it, I'm not like other pastors. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of these areas that I'm hoping the blood of that lamb covers. We all do. The only difference is, I believe it. I'm not doing this for sordid gain. And I will include anybody and everybody that comes. Anytime, anywhere. I'm trying my best to look past this world and live in the next. Although I'm not very good at it yet. I'm practicing. I'm getting there. But see, you wouldn't even know that directed lifestyle unless you could understand John. And John's writing about it very matter-of-factishly. It's not like, boy, I hope all this is true, so we ought to at least give it a shot. What do you think? He's not writing like that. He's writing like it is. And now I see not so much of the hope of gaining the next world, but of the danger of missing the next world. And one of the dangers are the priests themselves, the pastors themselves, that are preaching up a storm about stuff that they have no idea. Even Jesus said to Nicodemus, how is it that you're a preacher, a leader of these people, and you haven't got a clue? Well, Nicodemus wasn't alone. There was two clubs of them, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now, the Essenes, they were truly religious men. And I think they might not have known as much with the assurance of John, but they were pretty good at the God stuff. They're the ones that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls and said, we got to preserve this because generations from now, they'll need it to know it happened. It was true. And they did. And they spent their lives, or what was left of their lives, before the Romans got them and killed them all. They spent their lives writing those scrolls and hiding them in the caves. Why? If there was a big army coming and you knew they were going to destroy you and everything around you, why would you spend your last days doing that?
Something's very, very important.
Something's very, very important that we need to preserve. Now, on that note, I'll tell you a little joke. Remember Big Boy restaurants? Mm-hmm. Little kid holding that giant double. You know, McDonald's ripped them off. Yeah, and they made their, McDonald's whatever burger. But Big Boy was the originator of that. And they had those statues, those giant statues. Well, they thought that was kind of cartoonish and old-fashioned. So back in I want to say about 73 or 74, the company made a decision to gather up all those statues, and they didn't know what they were going to do with them. So they dug a big hole out in Arizona somewhere, and they buried all those statues. It was the easiest way to get rid of them, because they were huge. And it would cost more to try and get rid of them than just to hide them away. So be aware that when your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson is trying to find purpose and meaning and religion in his life, and they uncover all those big boys out in the desert, that is not God. And that Big Boy burger is not manna from heaven. It is. Anyway, that's stupid, but when you look at the Essenes, they spent the last days of their life writing feverishly what we would call the Dead Sea Scrolls, because that's where they hid in the caves out there by the Dead Sea. And the Romans came to the Dead Sea up to Mutzara, because what was left of Jerusalem fled up to the top of it. And for 3 years they built a siege ramp until they got up there, and of course they all killed themselves. While they were doing that, they were searching those caves and finding the Essenes and killing them as well for those 3 years. And they told that general, whatever his name was, "You have a great victory." He says, "I've got 178 corpses on the top of a dead mountain in a lifeless desert next to a worthless sea. What kind of victory have I got?" And he lost 500,000 men doing it. What kind of victory have I got? Well, if you're following the world, you don't have a victory. If you're following Jesus, regardless of what the world does to you or to anybody else, the fact of the matter is, Jesus said, "Why do you struggle for stuff here on earth? Store up your treasures in heaven where nobody can rob and nobody can steal and rust will not destroy." Wow, you see the pattern going on here? It's the same thing over and over again, isn't it? Except we have one ace up our sleeve. What is that ace? Well, we call him John, the beloved disciple of Jesus, who wrote a magnificent gospel that seems to tell us it is. As he says, "I am," I say it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the sermon today, and I want you to pay particular attention to 2 illustrations. I'm going to start with one, I'm going to close with another. I'm not going to tell you yet. You got to wait. Tune in. In about 20 minutes. All right? This is chapter 10, but it's not over yet. Next week we're going to do 11, but we're going to have to stop halfway through 11 because he's going to shift from the world to the Last Supper. And this is where, if you think John's been crazy intimate so far, this is where we're going to get down to this heaven stuff. Guys, that fish was this big. I'm not lying to you. Just like Jesus. Guys, if it were not so, I would not have told you. Just like the Revelation says, "John, write these words. They are trustworthy and they are true." It is happening. And take them to the children in the churches. If it weren't so, I wouldn't have told you. What would cause Jesus to say that? Why didn't the other 3 guys report on that? Because they didn't know it was so. John did. John did. I wonder why I got my doctorate in the book of John. Because it was the only gospel that fascinated me. The other ones are nice. But this one, there's something's wrong here. The way he started it, in the beginning was God. And God was the Word, and God made the Word, and that Word became flesh and came to us and brought us the light of life. What the heck are you talking about, crazy man? How do you know all this? Who told you all of this? He saw it. And then every chapter of John, who in the world are you talking to? It's like if I were talking to you guys, but speaking to this wall the whole time. Say, don't you see it? And you guys are sitting here going, what is he doing? He's nuts. That's the way you read John's gospel. Who's he talking to? What's he trying to say? Better said, why is he saying this? Why is he writing like this? Nicodemus, you're a leader of the Jews, and you can't tell me what's going on? Fact of the matter is, he couldn't. He didn't know. He had no idea. Where'd John get it from? John seems pretty certain about it. Pretty matter-of-fact-ish about it. Where'd he get it? That's why I got my doctorate in John. Still trying to answer that question. Where'd he get it? My only answer is, he'd been somewhere we hadn't. If you tell me the greatest burger in the world is out at Joe Blow's Burger Shop, I'd ask you, well, have you been there? And you say, well, no, I haven't. I just read something in the paper about it. I have no time to listen to you. But if I say, have you been there? You said 15 times. I ordered everything on a menu. Then I'd say, okay. I'd go home and get Carol and say, we need to go to Joe Blow's Burger Shop. And then we'll form our own opinion. And it'll probably be good if it's as good as you say it is. Have you been there? I think John has. Next week we'll transition now from the end of the world discussion to the most intimate relationship on the planet, or the planet has ever known, that we call the Last Supper. Okay? And we're going to learn about a little sacrament that happens there to join this God and this people once and for all, without which we would never have known anything about Holy Communion. We only know about it by John. Question: why did he write that in there? Why? Think about it. All right, that's it. Let's go.